Hey, my name is CJ and I'm back with another YouTube video. I know I haven't posted on here in a minute, but today I will be talking about black liberalism, its failures, and how black liberalism does not achieve black liberation, but rather recuperates the idea of black liberation for capitalist exploitation. And I'll also be discussing my experiences with black liberals on the app known as TikTok. When discussing black liberalism, we need to discuss what is black liberalism in itself. Black liberalism is an attempt for black people to achieve social progression and social safety in a society that was never really meant for them to be in the first place. Black liberalism is the failed attempt for America to wash away its original sin, that is chattel enslavement of black people. This slave trade also had the dual nature of also being a genocide of African people and their cultures and the pillaging of African bodies and African people for centuries to come. Black liberalism does not really acknowledge the systemic inequalities in the system itself, and it does not address the state, capitalism, or the manufactured consent that the state has over black bodies. I intentionally put the clip of Barack Obama being inaugurated in 2008 because this is when you start to see the lie of black liberalism be put into the forefront of American politics. We can see a push for a quote unquote post-racial American or zeitgeist, but did this really line up with the material day-to-day conditions for a common black person in America? Were black people finally liberated? No, this is because Obama continued the same white supremacist capitalist systems, expanding big business. He also appointed Tom Homan, who was literally the deporter in chief. He's literally the head of ICE for Trump right now. So we see a direct link between Obama and the current crises such as what's going on in LA. Obama's presidency accelerated the system, and we are feeling this acceleration today, and we're still feeling the ramifications of Obama's imperialist, war hawkish, and fascistic reign on our government. We can see that black liberalism is an attempt by liberalism to reconcile its inherent contradictions, but it cannot do this because the contradictions will persist no matter how much black liberalism or liberalism tries to regulate itself. This is because capitalism is an unstable system that cannot sustain itself. Now that I've critiqued Obama and the advent of black liberalism and a construct known as black liberalism, I would like to get into my experiences on the app known as TikTok with black liberals. So to start off this story, we'll have to start off with the advent of the Maya and Tory Greer saga. In this saga, Maya, who is a Palestinian creator with 2 million followers, basically says in a nutshell that she's not going to vote for Kamala Harris because Kamala Harris is continuing and financing the genocide of Maya's people in Palestine. Maya is right to stand in this stance and has every right to feel this way. She also tells vaguely to another creator, and this creator is known as Tory, to basically take out the watermelon in her name because the watermelon symbolizes something completely different than what Tory Greer is trying to recuperate it for with her liberalism. Tory in this situation is basically trying to play both sides, be pro-Palestine and still fall into the lie of Kamala Harris being a viable candidate for liberation and social progression. And then basically we get to the saga of when Maya and Tory go live. When Maya and Tory go live, in a nutshell, Maya ends up muting Tory because Tory is constantly talking over Maya and Maya's not able to get a word out. And Maya has said 4 times at this point, can you please be quiet and stop talking over me? So Maya mutes her. This incident sets off of catalysts of events that still have ramifications to this day, because people misconstrue this and say Maya's being anti-black, Maya hates black women, but none of this is really true here, and we'll find out why later. Over time, this happens during the summer, so after this, the election happened, Kamala loses. People scapegoat Arabs, and when we come back to TikTok, they scapegoat mainly Maya. They still scapegoat Maya to this day for the election, even though statistically and data shows that Maya Yoni was not even the closest factor to why Kamala Harris lost. We can get into a whole nother discussion about that. But we know Maya's not the reason why she lost. But this leads to a whole divide in TikTok between really liberals and leftists, and in my specific case, black liberals and leftists. And then after Kamala loses the election, you start to see a wave of liberals just going back to Starbucks for no reason other to than to spite Palestinians. This is my first interaction. This is the first time that I stitched Jonty. And then after this, Jonty blocked me. But that will also come in later in the story of how that like devolved into his other chain of events. And then after this, we see the advent of the 92% movement of specific black women on the app that said that black women, 92% of black women stood with Kamala Harris. Why couldn't other people? And they feel so abandoned by everybody else. But the whole 92% movement falls flat in his face when you realize that the metric really isn't accurate and is not an accurate representation of black women's voting cycles this election. It's also just the idea rooted in American exceptionalism and just imperial girl boss feminism, and the idea that Kamala Harris was going to be some sort of liberative figure towards black women, even despite her career over prosecuting truant mothers in Oakland. The liberal mind will never be able to conceptualize a world from a globalist point of view because liberalism inherently attaches itself to American hegemony and only the American perspective. But I say all this to say that with my whole spats with black liberals on the app, one of the lines that I felt like was crossed that never should have been crossed in the first place was when people were starting to threaten to dox me and expose my personal information, because at the end of the day, it's not that serious and it's not that deep, especially when you realize the reason why you're doing all these things is because you've realized that I'm smarter than you and that somebody younger you is outpacing you in a field that you thought you were so well rounded in because you've been so used to moral grandstanding on Republicans and not realizing there are other perspectives outside of the corporate duopoly, outside of the bipartisanship. We as leftists were right, always have been right, and always will be right throughout history because we as leftists see the world through a dialectical lens. You can almost predict the future. It's crazy. But leftists will always be on the right side of history, and I think that's what the liberals realize, and that is something that they are not coming to grips with because it's an ego hit. It's a their pride is hurt, and at this point they're just lashing out at anything and anybody. Like when I saw them attacking Dr. CJ and Maddie Swan, and it's like they traded over to this side. Like there are no sides at the end of the day because we really don't know each other in real life off the app. It's only a handful of mutuals that I actually talk to and have a relationship with off of the app. It is really no size at the end of the day because I know if I was to see a lot of y'all liberals, I don't care if it's too raw, too real, John T, Tory, Reggie. If I was to see y'all in real life, y'all be quiet mouth. And y'all know y'all would. So it's inherently nonsensical for the actions that you all have partaken in on the app. And this goes for Desi as well. Like harassing me on my Instagram. Like those lines should never be crossed, especially when we're having intellectual conversations, because as someone that has been in a leftist space for years at this point, I know what healthy discourse looks like. I know what healthy discussion looks like without people having to go to dire straits to take down a literal 19-year-old TikToker. Like I saw Sasha, Sister Separatist, say that CJ is the continuation of COINTELPRO and the independent research service. Like, what are we talking about here? What is this? What is attacking CJ at the end of the day? What is that going to do? Kamala's not coming back. Y'all gonna have to wait for 2028 for that. And even then, I don't even know if she's gonna win. And it's like, you all are literally shielding yourself away from the reality of the world, and you all are not touching grass. And I see this is more ever prevalent with Deontay Kyle exposing himself as a rad lib, like having the rad lib perspective of Black American exceptionalism and F Latinos, and saying all type of anti-Mexican stuff in the name of anti-blackness while being anti-black. And I don't think these liberals realize that, like, you are not the arbitrator. You're not the only arbitrator of what's considered anti-black. You're not the final judge, jury, and executioner. What you label as anti-black may not really be anti-black because you weaponize your identity so much. Liberalism relies on the weaponization of identity to sustain itself and to keep its exploitative hand on marginalized people. This is purposeful by the status quo, and this is most definitely subconsciously and consciously internalized by liberals. And this is why we see so much vitriolic reactions whenever they're encountered with the true perspective from the left, the perspective that is right, the perspective that is just, the perspective that is equal, the perspective that is egalitarian, the perspective that literally puts themselves and makes them purely human. You know what I'm saying? I don't think liberals have a concept of humanity due to its racist nature. You're a liberal is not propense to see someone's humanity because of its history of liberalism literally degrading black people to literal cattle, subhumans, three-fifths of a person. And I think if more people realize this, they will literally reject liberalism. But the way that liberalism still grips us to this day through the weaponization of identity, through identity reductionism, needs to be talked about more. And that term identity reductionism needs to be used more in our public sphere, in our public discourse, as leftists, as Marxists, as anarchists, as ANCOMs, et cetera, to basically tell people what the Democratic Party is doing and how they're abusing minorities with identity reductionism. Because at the end of the day, Barack Obama was bombing brown and black kids in Africa. Kamala Harris was bombing brown and black kids in Palestine and in Africa. We need to start having more serious conversations. And this is what I think the liberals are just not ready to have. They're not ready to have a serious conversation because they are the most unserious people to ever exist. Their praxis and their logic and their politic is not stable. It's subject to wane. And that's where I'm going to reel it back in. And I believe this is where I'm going to end the video. I'm most definitely going to go more in depth about black liberalism in the future. I don't view this as being my last part or my last piece in unpacking what is black liberalism, what is liberalism, how it manifests itself in our daily interactions, in our daily lives. So I hope you all like, subscribe, and comment and tell me if you want more videos from me in the future. It's CJ, and I'm out.